Antti in a great resumption of form this season. Fox wins the Austrian Grand Prix and he wins the Italian Grand Prix. A great race for him. Will come across the line here and win the Brazilian Grand Prix. Redemption day for the American driver. She wins the Spanish Grand Prix. Will be Kubo unless Kado gets an amazing run, which he does. As he comes to the final winner for the very first time.
Hello, and welcome. This is Ultimate Virtual. This is the Turkish Grand Prix. We have had a race at Istanbul Park Circuit since all the way back in Season 1. It has hosted, to date, and present excluded, 5 Grand Prix, the most of any circuit other than Monaco. That is very impressive. This is a whole new chapter for racing at Istanbul. It saw the Formula A generation of cars. It saw the myriad of races with Formula Esports, and now with this new dedicated Virtual Leagues car class, we come racing here once more. Now, let's get into the qualifying session. The drivers have just about 2 minutes left on the clock. Grandy sits on provisional pole, somehow made it. Pips him to it. That was a fantastic fight for the win last time out between former teammates. Somehow I made it. And Antti, if you haven't seen the Palanga race yet, then go and watch it. It was an absolute belter. But we return just a week later here in Turkey. We'll take a look at the team. Whoopsie. Didn't know that did that. The team overviews. Our championship leaders are SFR. They have a nice 15-point cushion over FVR in second and an almighty 32-point cushion over the next team that has more tokens than them, being Audi Sport Virtual. This looks to be, barring an amazing couple of single token races from Goose and Todsod, all but SFR's championship to lose. They have the most upgrades of any team. They got another one, a turbo upgrade this time out, but just look at the composition of the cars. I think this is a really interesting thing to do. So obviously they have the most points per token. Their real strengths have been actually acceleration not bad, grip really strong, turbo also really strong. With how close the speed is between everyone, 6 teams with 2 speed and 4 teams with 3 speed, it does seem to be that the acceleration versus grip makes all the difference, and you especially have very competing philosophies. Pappy Pops and BFX, same number of tokens left, separated by 3 points, but look at this, 9 acceleration and 1 grip for Pappy Pops, meanwhile 4 acceleration and 9 grip for BFX, so there is no clear winner out of that necessarily. Right, this is interesting. We currently have a tie for pole position. That is fascinating. I believe somehow I made it set the lap first, but obviously it will be the system of the game that decides who will end up starting on that pole position. We'll have a look now as somehow I made it. Can he go better? Can he actually break that lap marker that he set already? He might be able to do it. He does! He goes even quicker. Kraft fails to do so. We will not have a tie on our hands. It will be somehow I made it on pole position. And it is, for the second race in a row, the Russian driver for the Neon Sunset Virtual team. Somehow I made it. Finally getting the token spending that he's held off on for so long. He took pole in Palanga. He takes it again here in Istanbul Park. Kraft will be devastated not to be taking his maiden pole, or at least a tied pole, which he held until that final lap, but he will start career best, 2nd place. Corvid starts 3rd for the Leadpool Racing team. He'll be just ahead of Grandy on that 2nd row. Caddo will start 5th in a Thunder Egg sandwich, with Pit Crew starting 6th. Then Jake Brad starts 7th ahead of Todsod. It's Abfer and Jiruni rounding out the top 10. Prix starts 11th for the Audi team. They did very well in Palanga, a great deal of tokenless points for them. with a really good finish from both drivers in the points. Goose, 12th place for FVR, then it's Rito ahead of 1, Shiloh ahead of Fox, Kada, then Pappy, Anti, then Suicide. Now let's take a look at the token spends. Obviously these are all released before the race these days, but nevertheless we can still take a look. Pit Crew spends 3 tokens. He qualifies 2 places behind his teammate Grandy, yet again having an outstanding qualifying for a tokenless driver, and he had an amazing finish as well. We'll get onto that in a second, but I believe it was a 6th place finish in Palanga. A great deal of points for him, considering that he ran out of tokens a good few races ago now. Kado spends 3 tokens. He starts just ahead of Pit Crew on the 3rd row of the grid. Corvid spending 2 tokens starts all the way up in 3rd position. Could it be that 3rd speed level for the Leadpool Racing driver? Todsod starts down in 8th with his single token. Somehow made it. Pole position with his 2, which is less of a common thing these days. It used to be quite regular, especially back in the sort of prime of Rito's days, where he took 5 pole positions in Season 2, and a lot of them were just on a 2 token spend. Abva with a single token starts 9th, and Kraft with 4 tokens will start 2nd. Notable outliers: Grandy with no tokens starting 4th, Jake with no tokens starting in 7th position. We have, again today, only 7 drivers spending tokens. Again, the trend of a severe drop-off from the first half of the season. Now, we brought this back as well. This is your driver's standings. We now have the tokens left in the actual driver's standings, so maybe a bit obsolete, but I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at nonetheless. Pit Crew has quite a lot of ground to make up. Obviously, that doesn't factor in the fact that he is spending 3 tokens here today. So he could be in for a really good shout for the win and really bolstering those points up. 25 points would see him go all the way up to above Rito in the standings. Very tight pack there. Up at the top, Goose with 1 token left. He'll have to try and make some points with that. Anti, though, with 3. If those 3 are well deployed, leading him to at least a 4th place finish, he will take the lead of the championship, other circumstances, of course, permitting. Pappy, also looking decent. Jiruni, Juan and Pappy all have a point to prove. With their handful of tokens left, they can all move past Grandy, who may again look to be not on for a World Drivers' Championship. Finally, we'll take a look at the more in-depth standings, and actually this one doesn't have the tokens left on it, so just as well. We could probably... no, it doesn't go over it. Or does that have the... yeah, there's no point. Anyways, yes, last race was a fantastic one for the likes of Audi. They took 8 points tokenless, as did Grandy himself take 8 points tokenless. Anti, getting that overtake done at the final chicane on Somehow I Made It, took the victory. That marks his first race of the season and the latest race of the season, where he took his wins. We could be on for a potential 3-win Drivers' Champion this season, which we haven't seen for a little while. Meanwhile, Goose still leads the way. It is up to the other drivers to try and topple that challenge. We may see a bit of that today. Finally, the Constructors' Championship, as reflected in the upgrades video, or just actually earlier in this video, it looks like Superfast Racing's to lose, barring amazing double point score for FVR with a sort of, it would have to be a P6 with a token on both occasions. They are pretty much safe from the team directly behind them, and then they have to turn their attention back to the likes of Thunder X. 5 tokens more, yes, but 42 points behind Audi, 2 tokens more only, and 32 points behind. The biggest threats look to be coming from that mid-pack. Kraft spending heavy today. Will that nullify the potential chance of an upset from one of those teams in 4th to 6th area from climbing up to the top? That is all. We're going to get right into the race now. Here we go then. 49 laps ahead of our drivers. We are underway for the Turkish Grand Prix. Somehow I made it, and Kraft pretty even. Stevens off the line. Grandy gets a bit bogged down. Kraft takes the lead there as we head into the first sector. Pit crew to the outside of Corvid, making the Aussie just take a little bit of grass in that lead poor car. Grandy had a poor start initially. Caddo got past him. Grandy is back through on his hard compound tyres. Corvid is going to have a look at the outside of Pit crew. Can he go into third place? He does overshoot the corner, and Pit crew gets the move back on the exit, but quite rightly, in all honesty, gets a penalty that sees Todd Sod go flying past as well. He might lose a triple jeopardy here, as Caddo does get that move done through the first sector chicanes, moves himself back up to 5th position, and Todd Sod with an absolute flyer of a start here as they go up the inside into turn 8, that famous long left-hander. The Thunder X is really fighting it out behind the Frenchman. Can they get a double overtake on him here? Pit crew boosts hard and long and makes that gap out for himself. Meanwhile, Grandy, with a more conservative approach, just places his car up the inside. But yes, they did get that done. However, Caddo got that move back, and look at this enormous pack of cars behind. But meanwhile, up at the top, it's Kraft leading from Somehow I Made It. It would be the second race in a row for him to take pole and finish second if he does that here today. Corvid with Todd right into the back of him, forcing both drivers quite deep into that corner. They've really got to be careful of their braking zone as they head into that particular avenue. Caddo with a good move on Pit crew up the inside. He goes there, just needs to keep this spot through the chicanes. Pit crew will come back up the inside, and the strategy of those who took harder tyres at the start will be nullified. Rain is on its way. It almost never looks a good strategy with how frequently we have rain in the early parts of the races. Kraft into the pit lane in the lead of the race. He should come out in the lead as well. Our lead pack of drivers all making their way in before a bit of rabble behind, but actually, oh yeah, no, one hadn't stopped yet. The rain starting to make its way down. Split strategies between our drivers. Kraft on the full wet weather tyres. Somehow Made It on the inters. Corvid on the wets. Todd on the inters. Pit crew on the wets. Caddo on the inters. Juan on the wets. A complete alternate strategy in our top 7. And it looks like we already know which of those will have paid off, because the rain, just as soon as it came, will be leaving our presence at the end of this lap probably. The Inter runners may be tempted to stretch it a lap further. I think that would be an unlikely outcome, in all honesty. I don't think there's much value in them doing that. But they are all going to be getting rid of those tyres sooner rather than later. And they all seem to have been pretty much keeping position as they go through the lap. Todd slightly closing up to the back of Corvid, but even the wets in these cars don't lose that much time. In dry running, Somehow Made It did stay out. That's why we didn't see him in the pit lane. This is a gamble that will only work if we get rain back right now. The weather marker is hovering ominously over the clouds, but no, sun has been announced, and he will, unfortunately, I believe, just be losing a bit of time, but he does seem to be getting in a pretty good bit of straight line speed. Yeah, he makes his way through the corner there. A little bit of grip loss. We'll track him and Kraft as Kraft comes flying down, but Somehow Made It just coming out of the pit box. Kraft goes through into the lead. This is the kind of race that he would have hoped to have at, say, Vallelunga, where he spent 4 tokens there for a horrible return of a 7th place finish. It is not looking like that today. He has that lead, and now he has that gap as well. Our favourite little battle from early in the race, Todd Sod versus Corvid, ever rages onwards. Todd on the softs once again. Corvid taking a slightly wider line, using the extra turbo of that lead poor car and getting his way through on the Canadian, but the battle's not done yet as they go into turn 1. Corvid has to make way on the inside, and if Somehow Made It had stretched a couple laps further, he would have been able to keep those inters on, because drivers will be going back into pit lane. Jero is our first in, and look at this absolute pack of cars all behind him as well. Goose, Rito, Fox, Suicide, Kada, Shiloh, Pappy, Priya and Anti. With the amount of time loss, as in not much, of the wet on the slick conditions or the lower rain conditions, you can't blame them for all going for wets, and that seems to be proven absolutely the right decision with full rain coming now. Grandy will be the last driver into the pit lane. He's had a little bit of a rough start, and he will get undercut by Jaruni, as potentially will Abver. Yes, he does. And Jero up into 8th position. The right time to come in for those full wet weather tyres. The track is properly damp now. Kada up there. Fox and Goose really fighting it out. Kada would have tried to make a sneaky move past, but can't get anything done. Puts half a nose up the inside there. Todd versus Corvid looks to be on hold for now. We'll take a look at the ratings of these cars once again. You can see the Leadpaw has 6 turbo, the FVR with 4 turbo. That just gives them slightly more power in those overtaking maneuvers, and that is a good thing to have. Meanwhile, if we look a little further down, we've got Pit Crew chasing down Caddo. Caddo running in a very solid 5th place. Oopsie, running in a very solid 5th place at the moment. And if we take a look at his last race, it was also a 5th place. He got a podium, 2nd place in Monaco. What Butter, the team owner, described as a vintage VLO drive, by which I think he means compete very well and for a very good return, but still inevitably lose out in 2nd place to a BFX. We have Kraft, I believe, having just been taken off by Fox at the final corner. You can see from the slow acceleration that Fox is not letting him go. I don't know who's paying Fox. Maybe there's a bit of Russian interference. But that gap that was a good few seconds has been completely wiped away by the Canadian driver, who has seemingly no motive to do so, other than maybe just his professed hatred for the BFX team. They weren't the most popular team back in their glory days. They have been hit by hard times throughout the 3rd generation of Ultimate Virtual. They finished 8th place in the Constructors' Championship both times. Couldn't get it right, despite having 4 separate drivers take a crack at it. They have their 3rd brand new driver lineup in as many seasons. It was, of course, Season 5, Sobel and Rito's swan song for the team. Sobel went into retirement. Rito moved, is now the teammate of the man chasing down the new generation of BFX driver. Season 6, we saw Bluebell step back into the seat for the first time since Season 2, along with Mark Andries. The pair had gotten the sister team Kola Sforza relegated the previous season, so it was an interesting decision for them to take their hand at the main team now, and alas, it didn't pay off. And now we have the return of Girouni, currently running in 8th position, and the rookie driver Kraft leading some of his first laps led in the competition. Right, Shiloh not providing as many difficulties there. Somehow made it. Slightly held up by Prix, in fact. Gosh, that gap back at about 2.5 seconds. Todd in 3rd for the time being, and that would be an amazing, a truly amazing finish for him and for the FVR team. I mean, if you look at the car, they have a good deal of acceleration. That could be helping, particularly around a track like this. There's a lot of sections where you're sort of going through, you're going down a couple gears as you go through quite a tight and finicky chicane, and you just need to get back up to speed. So the acceleration, particularly look out for it would be Pappy Pops, Thunder X, Audi and FVR if it's an acceleration track. If it's a grip track, you're more looking at Superfast Racing, but then also still Thunder X and also BFX. BFX performing very well in this race so far, maybe indicating that it is more of a grip track than acceleration, but it is difficult to say. Kraft into the pit lane, out on the hard, somehow made it. That is the right choice in my opinion. Goes for the soft compound tyres. He just needs to try and make up that gap to the Finn out in front. There goes the similarities further. It would be for the 2nd time in as many races. Somehow I made it, starting on pole position, finishing 2nd place, to a Finnish driver. Todd Sod in 3rd at the moment, really a bit of welly on with that turbo use. He has to not go too deep into this corner. He might be closing up to the back of Somehow I Made It. We have seen incredible performances at this track with low token spends before. It is not completely unheard of. Season 1, nothing in particular. We did have a podium of, in fact we can go through the historic podiums, that'd be fun. So it was Rito, currently running in 12th place, ahead of Goose, currently running in 13th place. Look at that, that's quite fun, little throwback. These two were 1 and 2, the first time that we raced at this track in Sunday League Virtual as it was then. X610 in 3rd, Anti in 4th. Also on that grid were Urist and Bluebell in the top 10. Kubo won in Season 2, of course this is his first season off the grid since he joined, But the standout performance, I mean, actually, Levioso arguably with a 5th place for a single token, but Volado 204 in the Nuri Racing Team car finished 4th place with no tokens at all, which at that time was the highest finish for any tokenless driver, which was just an incredible drive in what was not a particularly dominant car. That could be emulated here today by the likes of Todsod, but Caddo and Corvid will be looking to snatch that podium off him. Caddo having a really good start to this stint. He's on the soft compound tyres. Every one of our drivers, in fact, has done 4 pit stops, so all a pretty level playing field, barring undercuts, overcuts, strategy, and the like. Season 3 saw Eurist win with 2 tokens, just ahead of future teammate Kubo. Spuda rounded out the podium. Giruni was 4th on that occasion, but for Flying V Racing. And Season 5, because we didn't race here in Season 4 due to the Dorvid pandemic, saw anti-win from Andres and Kubo. Fox in 4th and Pit Crew in 5th on that day. Not that guy, took one of his best finishes of his career in 6th position. Season 6, of course, saw Pit Crew's one and only victory in his career so far, the one victory champion. Bluebell finished 2nd on that occasion. Fox in 3rd, just ahead of Goose. Caddo in 5th. Could history repeat itself? Velocity will hope not, most likely. Craft leads from Somehow Made It. Todsod much closer now to the driver in 2nd than he is to the driver in 3rd, who is now Caddo, but gets severely held up by Pappy to the point where Corvid is now back on him. I gotta say, especially, maybe it's just this track or maybe it is this generation of cars overall, but it does seem that lapped cars play much more of an effect than they have done in seasons gone by. They really do dampen your acceleration, like you can see for Corvid there. If Pappy doesn't get out of his way, he will run into issues, particularly at this final corner. Yeah, well, he just go into the pit lane anyways. I think that is a planned stop. Pit Crew, meanwhile, goes through into 5th position. Take a look at the tyres. Kraft is on hards, so he's probably about halfway through his stint on those. Somehow Made It, put on the softs at the same time, but unfortunately has only fallen backwards. We see a massive crash at the final corner between an FVR and a Neon Sunset car. That was not Todd and Vlad, it was indeed their teammates, the Season 1 race winner and runner-up, fighting for 12th place at the moment, getting somewhat out of their teammates' ways. Obviously, Vlad came into the pit lane anyways, but Todd now into 2nd place with his single token spend. Good golly. He got the most podiums out of any driver in Ultimate Virtual last season, which is very impressive for a rookie driver such as himself. He's on pretty worn out medium tyres. Caddo is in off his old softs. Any driver who came in for softs after the rain ended will be back into the pit lane once more. Corvid flies through, and he will actually only just take the position there. Oh, but he did undercut. That's a good point. So he came in for a couple laps earlier, put on that hard compound tyre, and yeah, less wear than Caddo. Somehow Made It, only came in a lap ago. He holds 4th place at the moment, but Pit Crew and Todsod yet to stop for a 5th time. Then looking down the grid, so Caddo on his fresh hards, Jerry on pretty old mediums, but he does have a nice comfy gap behind him. The pace of the BFX today really is there. This could be seen very much as a grip track, playing into the strengths of that car. I suppose the extra speed level can't hurt either. Jake in 8th place at the moment, ahead of Abfer in 9th. And Grandy in 10th position. Abver with a single token spend, looking to get 2 points in return. That is not... I mean, it is pretty typical of Fox's season so far, unfortunately for them. Pit Crew on his old tyres being passed by Somehow Made It now on much fresher hards, and that is 4th position. Somehow Made It now up into 3rd place. Caddo down in 6th currently. He'll need to try and get through on Corvid and then try and, well, stay ahead of Pit Crew once he comes in. Pit Crew has considerably offset himself, but you do lose a lot of time when visiting your Pit Crew here. He will come out safe of Giruni behind, particularly helped by Giruni pitting, which he finally does now. Jake will sweep through turn 1 out into 7th place. Abva also goes through. Jeru comes out in 9th position. Meanwhile, the battle for 4th is heating up a little bit as we see another big crash, and that's somehow I made it at the final corner. Really getting some difficulties there. Corvid bogged down in traffic. A lot of orange cars in there. Caddo goes through into 3rd. Can he go through into 2nd? Yes, he can. Corvid also right on the back of the Russian. All it took was one massive gaggle of back markers, and that has blown this fight for the podium wide open once more. Caddo has the freshest of the hard tyres, then it's somehow made it, and then it's Corvid, all staggered by a single lap. But other than that, on very similar strategies, Caddo, through pretty much a stroke of luck now, up into 2nd position. Kraft, on his very old hard compound tyres, actually may come out right into this pack. It is risky going for such an offset strategy. Obviously, he has the gap for the time being, but for how much longer? He goes into the pit lane now, a little bit of a roundabout way. It does remain to be seen whether he will even be caught by the pack behind. If he is, he might have a couple of difficulties. He comes out of the pit lane now, through into turn 2. Caddo behind, you can see Kraft just ahead of him up the track. But now with a much fresher medium tyres, but this is exactly what Kraft didn't want to see. This is the worst possible timing for the Finnish driver. He comes out of the pit lane as if by magic rain is called. He will be in for 2 stops in as many laps, and a race that he has so dominantly led is now massively being played against his favour. Caddo then somehow made it, then Corvid, all into the pit lane now, all together. Caddo takes the wet weather tyre. Kraft will go for the Inter. Corvid also on the Inter, but somehow made it on the wet. It's an even split between our top 4, Todsod and Pit Crew, due to the unfortunate timing of their strategies, have gone from running in the podium and in and around those positions to 5th and 6th. Again, a really split strategy still. Kraft leads. He comes up to lap the teammate of Caddo, Kader, who's currently, he is holding him up just a little bit. Oh no, he does get a penalty there, unfortunately, but he will duly let his teammate fly past him down the main straight. Caddo, who was many seconds behind the race leader, now sees him just up the road. The wet tyre looks to have a little bit more purchase, even though we've got sunny conditions coming back, and as I say that, he does slip away a little bit, but he is fully on, actuality, with all the strategy being wiped clean by the rainy conditions, with just 14 laps to go, a second off the race leader. Kraft's comfortable lead, it was a couple seconds extended to a few seconds over Somehow I Made It before he ran that alternate strategy, and that is the big risk that you run with that strategy. You come into the pit lane and the worst possible thing happens. Disaster strikes. Pit Crew has caught Somehow Made It. The intermediates, I think, faring slightly better than the wets in these conditions, but negligible if it is an effect. Pit Crew, though, carries the overspeed up the inside. He could have moved back onto the racing line, but decided not to. The intermediate runners are staying out, or at least Pit Crew is staying out. Somehow Made It is the first driver into the lane. Todsod in just behind him, and this is a bit of a difficult situation for Caddo, who on those wets will be sliding around a lot more than some of the drivers running the Inters, but I think everyone running the Inters is at risk of being undercut as they all come into the pit lane now. They close up with the concertina effect. Caddo into that second pit box velocity, your runners up last season. Of course, he takes the hard craft on the mediums. Caddo not in favour of the idea of a bit of short-term gain, taking the soft tyres to really close up the gap to the race leader. He's going to play it long. Will that work out for him? Remains to be seen. We have just under 12 laps remaining in this Grand Prix, and it could go any which way for these drivers. It has absolutely flown past as Kraft flies past his teammate down the main straight. Caddo in second place now. Corvid looking to close in. Caddo really needs to be careful of these drivers on the softs behind, because early rain will ruin his strategy and just play the advantage into their hands. His gap to the race leader Kraft has already increased to 3 seconds. He needs to just maintain his advantage ahead of the soft tyre runners behind. Corvid is one of them. He's going to be eyeing up a move here. Don't, of course, count out Pit Crew, who does get past Somehow Made It, but he will be slightly disappointed if he does end up in fourth place with his 3 token spend. A reminder of the tokens, it's Kraft, our race leader, with the 4 token spend. Then our 3 token spenders are Pit Crew, currently running in 4th, Caddo currently running in 2nd, and our 2 token spenders, Corvid, currently running in 3rd, looking to make that 2nd very, very soon, as well as Somehow I Made It running in 5th position after taking pole position, not to count out either Todd Sod, who even 6th place would be a great result for a single token spend. Alas, it could have been a lot more. He was running up in those podium positions, and a bit of luck would have sent him, well, to the podium, to those famous steps. Abva running in 8th position. He's behind the tokenless Jake Brad and just ahead of the likes of Grandi and Jaruni, with Juan nearly a good lap behind. Corvid has yet to make proper inroads into Caddo's. It's really interesting to see this. There seems to be certain times where the tyres make a huge difference, certain times where they make no difference at all. I think you've got to say Kraft with an extra token, and the BFX considered one of the fastest cars. Its grip really strong, its speed really strong as well. The velocity is no slouch, but Corvid is already into the pits. Good golly. He really wasn't on those tyres for very long, you know. About 4 laps. I think he's considered that if he wants to do one final stint to the end, he's going to have to come in with a few laps to go. Kraft has lost the lead to Caddo. Kraft must have had some kind of incident there, or really dropped off on the pace, because Caddo leads the Turkish Grand Prix. This, the very same track that saw Kubo take his victories from Juan and Antti well into the runoff area. Absolute carnage as we come into the final few laps of this race. But it was this very track that saw Kubo to take one of his 3 victories in his rookie season. Back in Season 2, the higher-ups at Velocity have expressed concerns that they may not win at all this season. Caddo and Kraft bumper to bumper as they come out through these corners. Both of these drivers have earned their stripes and made their way up through the lower divisions, through Challenger Virtual, and up into the top tier of virtual racing. Can we see Caddo take another win for Team Velocity? He won his home Grand Prix back in Season 5 as a driver in the Velocity team for the very first time. He won the final race of the season at Interlagos by 0.02 seconds with a final straight overtake on Kubo. So he has won in every single season that he's competed for Velocity. Velocity have won in every single season that they've competed in Ultimate Virtual. Istanbul Park has been here since the beginning. Team Velocity have been here since the beginning. There is a chance with just 3 laps to go that these hard tyres will hold on better than Kraft's mediums. He looks to build that gap now. Kraft with such a dominant lead that he had in the early part of the race. All of that went to Nish when he came into the pit lane and rain was announced just a bit later. But he still has a bit of fight here. Caddo is struggling on those tyres. The BFX, I think you've got to say, is an inherently quicker car. It's proven that over the course of the season. It's proven that versus Velocity for many seasons, actually. Not every season, but many seasons. Velocity has felt like the team slightly in the shadow of BFX. We thought, is that run and done? Is that finally over with this new generation of cars? We saw the Monaco race. It was Caddo versus Jaruni on that occasion. These 2 drivers locking horns. These 2 historic teams locking horns. The rain on that day did not play in the favour of the team based in the Philippines. Drivers from Colombia and France. On this occasion, the rain has not played into the hands of the BFX driver as Caddo comes down with just a few corners left to negotiate. This will be a season where they take victory. Caddo wins the Turkish Grand Prix in one of the most dramatic fashions possible. Kraft will have to settle for 2nd place in the end. Pit Crew is on the podium as he won last season. Corvid just misses out when push comes to shove. And believe me, there was a lot of that today. Todd Sod, 5th place in the end for Flyview Racing, just ahead of Somehow I Made It, who will be annoyed to finish 6th. Jake Brad took 7th place in the end. Great tokenless points for Superfast Racing. Grandy, similarly so for Thunder Rex. That is 12 points in his last 2 races. No tokens spent. Alpha getting pushed off by Lapped Car Goose, who does get a penalty, but only 2 points for the token spending Fox car. Jaruni will make it double points here today for BFX. My oh my. What a phenomenal result that is for Caddo, for Team Velocity. They thought that this might not be the season where they'd be able to uphold their trend, but alas, they have managed it. Caddo has won in every season for Velocity after 24 minutes and a second of racing. With the fastest lap 2, he wins at Istanbul Park. He replaced Kubo when he came into the team. Kubo's final season, season 4. Caddo will have now, by the end of this season, done just as many as Kubo did for the famous white and navy blue team. Kubo did take victory at Istanbul Park all those seasons ago in a triumphant campaign for Team Velocity, and this has echoes of the past for the team from the Philippines. So, your final finishing order was Caddo, the victor. Kraft, 2nd place ahead of Pit Crew. Then Corvid, then Todsod, then Somehow I Made It. Jake Brad, then Grandy, Abva, then Jaruni rounding out the point scorers. Rito just outside the points in 11th place in the end. Then it was Goose in 12th, ahead of Juan, Pappy, Priya, then Caddo, Shiloh, then Fox, Anti, then Suicide. That is all of the action that we have for you here today. We will be back for the final 3 races of the season. Singapore, I believe for the first time, actually not, or maybe not for the first time, but it's been moved away from the slot of the penultimate round. It's now round 8. We will head to Daytona just after, and then we will crown our champion in Interlagos. It should be a thrilling end to the season, and it has been a thrilling race to boot. But for now, bye bye.